Pokemon Sword and Shield were the first Pokemon games to get full DLC, the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. And as I've only recently got a Switch, I've never played them before. Until now, that is. I played the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC for the very first time, and here's how it went. Before I set off for the Isle of Armor, there was one thing I had to do first. As some of you may or may not know, I'm a big fan of Wooloo. I just think it's absolutely adorable and I love everything about it. I have a Wooloo themed background on my PC, and I also have this little plush that watches me while I sleep. Of course, on my original Gen 8 playthrough, I had a Wooloo on my team, but I eventually got rid of it because normal types don't tend to be that good. So before setting off, I made sure to put it on my team so that I could use it again, even though it was a little bit underleveled. But we'll sort that when we get there. In order to get to the Isle of Armor, you have to start from Wedgehurst Station. So I took myself to Wedgehurst and tried to find a station, and then ended up getting a little bit lost. While trying to find a station, I talked to some Wooloo, but eventually got to the station. I then managed to get on a train that took me all the way to the Isle of Armor. As soon as I arrived here, I instantly got given a new Pokédex, and then this guy at the station said that there was a strange person outside. This person soon revealed themselves to be a girl named Clara, and because she is a woman, that means I am scared. We exit the station and I get to see the beautiful sights of the Isle of Armor. Clara instantly challenges us to a battle, where I absolutely farm her. She is, to say the least, a little bit angry that I beat her, and then tells me to not go anywhere near the mysterious looking dojo over there. So what did I do? I went to the dojo, and on my way to said dojo, I found this man that has a lot of Digglers. He said he got them on a trip to the Alola region. Of course, with him being a fan, you would assume that he probably catches a couple. But nah, he caught 150 of them. This man clearly has some problems. I make my way over to the dojo and find Clara and this Pixar mum talking outside, and it seems that Clara is telling fibs. She tells the Pixar mum that I decided to change my mind and head back. I think it's because she was jealous that I beat her. But anyway, they invite me inside the dojo and I get to meet Master Mustard. Amazing name, by the way. And in order to test my worthiness of staying at the dojo, he challenges me to a battle. He clearly hasn't learned from Clara's experience. So I farmed him in a battle and showed him up in front of all of his students, and then he lets me stay at the dojo. And also gives me this dojo uniform, which makes me look like a ninja of sorts. Clara complains that she hasn't got a uniform, so the Mustard Man hands her one, but not before it gets snatched up by a Slowpoke. Yes, you heard me. A Slowpoke. A Slowpoke that is so fast that it puts Sonic to shame. So Mustard Man sends out all of his students, including me, to go and find the uniform that the Slowpoke stole. Although I think she might look better without the uniform, but hey, that's just me. So like a hero, I head out on this mission to go and find the Slowpoke that stole the uniform. After chasing them down, battling them, and getting the uniform back, I head back to the dojo. I give Clara back her uniform, and and Honey gives me the option of 3 Pokemon to take. And these are the 3 Kanto starters. Of course, because it's the best one, I go with Squirtle. I mean, like, who wouldn't? And these 3 Pokemon, when evolved, have the capability of Gigantamaxing, which is a little bit different from Dynamaxing. It's where they change their form as well as grow huge. The Mustard Man then sends me to go and look for some mushrooms? I think there's probably a reason why his name is Mustard. It's probably not his real name and he's some like international drug dealer or something. Now apparently these mushrooms are a key ingredient in Max Soup, which is something that helps Pokemon Dynamax. And the Mustard Man tells me that you can find them in Warm Up Tunnel. So I head into the tunnel, find the mushrooms, and then get ambushed by Clara again. She challenges me to another battle, in hopes of stealing the credit of finding the mushrooms. Of course, I beat her easily. After she runs off crying, I get a phone call from Mummy. I need to stop doing this. She tells me to come back to the dojo so that we can put the mushrooms into a soup. She dances in front of it for a little while because, I don't know, apparently that helps cook it. And then the entire dojo feasts on these mushrooms that we found in a cave. With 2 trials out the way, Mustard Man challenges me and Clara to a 3rd trial. And by 3rd trial, he means we just have to battle each other in the backyard of the dojo. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I've got a pretty good track record when it comes to battling Clara. She leads with a Skorupi, while I lead with a Sandaconda. She sets up a Toxic Spikes, which means I get poisoned right off the bat. Knowing that the Skorupi can't one-shot me, I use the opportunity to coil and raise my attack and defense. Skorupi hits me with a bite that does absolutely nothing but trigger my Sand Spit, which creates a sandstorm, which results in both of us taking tick damage every turn. An Earth Power from Sandaconda takes away a good chunk of Skorupi's health. Skorupi then retaliates with a bite that does, again, absolutely nothing. And then one more Earth Power puts Skorupi in the ground, literally. I send out Corviknight in response to her sending out Weezing. Corviknight hits it with a super effective Steel Wing that does just under half of its health. An Assurance comes out from the Weezing that does, again, absolutely nothing. It gets hit by the Sandstorm, which takes it to just under half HP, which leaves me free to hit it with another Steel Wing to KO it, but it ends up dodging. It hits me with another Assurance, but all that does is assure me that I'm going to be fine. Hit it with another Steel Wing and Weezing goes down. She sends out Whirlipede, which my Corviknight then absolutely eats for lunch. She sends out a Slowbro that she instantly Dynamaxes. I hit it with a Steel Wing again, but it doesn't do that much. It hits me with a Max Geyser, which doesn't kill me but does give me flashbacks to Nessa's battle. I figured that before Corviknight's demise I'd hit it with another Steel Wing just to do a bit more chip damage, and it ended up being a crit. Result: one more Max Geyser finishes off my Corviknight, so I then send out Boltund. Hit it with a Wild Charge, which again doesn't do that much. It launches another Max Geyser, which very nearly kills Boltund, which I was not expecting. Slowbro undynamaxes, so I hit it with one last Spark to finish it off. Nearly. It finishes off my Boltund, and then I send out Double to finish off the Slowbro, just because I wanted it to have a little bit of the spotlight and have a good time. With Clara being beaten, I've officially beaten the third trial. Clara gives me her number, and then I head back into the dojo because Master Mustard wants to give me the secret armor. But this armor isn't actually armor at all. It's a little bear, and this little bear seems like he watches JoJo. So I like him. It also seems like he has some sort of social anxiety. Relatable content. I am given the task to train this little bear that is known as Cubfu, and I also have to become very good friends with it. So I head outside the dojo and go for a walk, and by walk I mean take a few steps and wait for this little thing to catch up. Go to do some battles with it and then realise it's a measly level 10. So I forget that idea and just stick to the walking and setting up camp and playing with it. I'll go back to the Mustard Man to see how my friendship with Cubfu is going, and he's just sat there playing the Switch. Lazy cunt. He tells me that there are spots around the Isle of Armor that I can take Cubfu and have a good experience looking at the scenery, which boosts the friendship. So I take the little mongrel to Loop Lagoon, and he seemed to have a good time, symbolising our friendship reaching the max. Mustard then says that we're on to the final stage of Cubfu's training, and this final stage involves taking on one of the two towers, the Tower of Waters or the Tower of Darkness. These are basically like a battle tower, but a lot shorter, and you can only use Cubfu, and you can only pick one of them. After approaching the Tower of Waters, they recommend that Cubfu is at least level 70. Oh boy, I've got some work to do. Maybe I shouldn't have spent all those candies on Dugwall. So I did what any decent Pokemon player does when they need to level up a Pokemon. Whack him in the back of your party, and take on the league over and over again. With my Cubfu now at level 68, so close to the funny number, I rummaged through my bag to see if there was any kind of item that I could give Cubfu that would help it in battle. I decided to go with the Muscle Band because it increases the power of physical moves. I then took on the Tower of Waters. The first trainer just has a Psyduck, which I can just Brick Break in one shot. The second trainer has a Krabby, which I Brick Breaked again, but didn't quite kill, but a second Brick Break did the trick. The third trainer has a Marill, which I used close combat on and only took it to just under half. Damn, that thing's tanky. Then I remembered that it's part fairy and I could have just used Iron Head on it, which I then did to finish it off. Cubfu leveled up to the funny number, and then I headed up to the 4th floor to take on the last trainer. This time it was a Poliwhirl. It used a few Whirlpools on me, but I managed to one-shot it with a close combat, allowing me to head to the top floor, which had Master Mustard in it. I healed up Cubfu and took on the challenge. He does some madness somersault reveal, and I'm just very surprised he didn't break a hip in the process. And then we start our battle, which ends up being a Cubfu 1v1. I start off the battle by going for a bulk up, but his Cubfu ends up being faster than me and hits me with a pretty scary aerial ace, which takes me down to below half health. Knowing that it's faster than me, I debate what to do next. I click close combat, just hoping that he doesn't use aerial ace again, and to my surprise he doesn't. He uses focus energy. So I hit him with a bulked up close combat, and the cheeky little pensioner has given his Cubfu a focus sash. I heal up knowing that he can probably one-shot me, and then he hits me with a critical hit Brick Break, which leaves me on 1 HP. I know that it's faster than me, so I try to just heal up and stall, and then he hits me with another critical hit Brick Break, and I lost the battle. So it looks like we're doing this again. I make my way up through the tower again, which, let's be honest, was piss easy, and I go to fight Mustard again. This time I don't bother going for the bulk up, and I just hit him with a Brick Break off the bat. But he hits me with an aerial ace first, taking me below half, and I hit him with a Brick Break, taking him to pretty much bang on half. Now I know that he can kill me with another aerial ace, so I try and potion up. Then he retaliates with a Brick Break, which is again a critical hit. So I try again. I go for the bulk up strat again. He hits me with the same old aerial ace, and then I have to heal up. But this time he uses focus energy, which gives me a chance to hit him with a Brick Break that does a pretty considerable amount of damage. I heal up again, and then he hits me with a Brick Break which doesn't do quite as much damage. I opt to go for the max potion this time, before he hits me with another Brick Break. Knowing that I can survive another Brick Break, I try and finish him off with my own. But guess where this is going? He lands, get this, another critical hit. God, I hate battling. So I reluctantly tried again. This time round he hits me with a Brick Break, I hit him with a Brick Break back. He hits me with another Brick Break, which would usually kill me, but in came the friendship thing that stops you from dying. And then that gave me enough time to just hit him with another Brick Break and kill him. So I ended up winning this battle through pure plot armor. God, I feel like Ash Ketchum. It didn't even feel satisfying to win this because I know it was just handed to me, but I'm just glad it's over. I showed Cubfu the Scroll of Waters, and then it evolved into the water version of Urshifu. I know I said earlier that Cubfu was a fan of JoJo, but with Urshifu standing behind me like this, he kind of just looks like a stand. I get back to the dojo and find that my good buddy Hop is there. Mustard tells us that there is a specific flavour of max soup that helps Urshifu turn into his Gigantamax form. So me and Hop go looking for the ingredients to make the soup. We make our way to the forest and find this petalil that looks really sad. You find out that it's been separated from its parent. So like the absolute hero that I am, I go looking for the parent of this lost petalil. I got a little bit lost in the forest myself, but eventually found this Lilligant. I offer to take her back to the petalil. So me and Cinderace escort the lovely lady back to her child. The two reunite, and as a thank you, the Lilligant gives you some of the nectar from a flower. Hop gives it a taste and decides that it's not the right ingredient we're looking for. Me and Hop then encounter this little applin, and after noticing us, Granny Smith over here starts rolling away. I chase it down and start disrupting its natural habitat. Then I get Isaac Newton'd on the head. Then it makes an absolute mug of us and just keeps rolling away. Hop sees a venipede and then suddenly remembers that nectar actually comes from bugs. So we head over to this honeycomb island. I shake a tree with a bee's nest in it because that was a very smart idea. Get attacked by a Dynamax Vespiquen and then have to fight it all on my own, because Hop pussies out. We get the ingredient we were looking for and then head back to the dojo. We use the ingredient to make the max soup that Urshifu likes, making it able to Gigantamax. And this is where Mustard challenges me to one final battle, where he goes all out. I head to the back of the dojo to challenge Master Mustard to this battle that he so desperately wants. He does this little flip again and the battle starts with him sending out a mean shout. He instantly hits me with a fake out, which causes my Cinderace to flinch and miss a move. And then I instantly respond with a flame charge that does just under half of its HP. It then very stupidly uses close combat, lowering its defense, allowing me to flame charge it one more time and KO it. And just to add insult to injury, it happened to be a crit as well. He then sends out Lycanroc, which I'm thinking, Rock type, easy, I can just one-shot it with a fighting move. But no, he uses Accelerock, which I'm pretty sure is a priority move, and then KOs my Cinderace. But not to worry, because I have another fighting type that this man literally gave me. So I send out the bear, hoping to one-tap it with a fighting move, but it outspeeds me and uses Play Rough, which takes about half of my HP. But a single Brick Break from Urshifu was enough to take down the little puppy. Mustard then sends out the very scary bird Corviknight, and with it being part steel, I was hoping to one-shot it with close combat, and I clearly don't know battling strats well enough. So with the defense drop from the close combat, it hits me with a super effective Brave Bird, KOing me instantly. And then I proved to everyone that I actually do understand type matchups, and I sent out Bolton. Hit it with a good old Spark and Corviknight was down. Next he sends out Komodo, and I hit it with a Spark that does very little. It very nearly OHKOs Bolton, but lowers its defense in the process. So as a last resort, I go for a Nuzzle just to try and paralyze it so that Bolton gets value before it dies. Bolton goes down, but this Komodo's defense is now at -2. So I send out Sandaconda, hoping I can one-shot it with his -2 defense. And again, it does nothing. God, why am I so bad at this? Not really knowing what to do, I go for a Coil, in hopes that I can buff myself and sweep the rest of his team with Sandaconda. But then he does one better and goes for a full Omni Boost. But with his HP getting pretty low, I go for another Earth Power, just to see if it kills. Spoiler alert, it does not. But he kills the Sandaconda, so yeah, that's fun. But it was not for nothing, because Sandaconda's ability, Sand Spit, sets up a Sandstorm, making it so that he will take tick damage every turn. And that kind of thing can come in clutch. The Sandstorm very nearly KOs Komodo, so then I send out Corviknight knowing that it's immune to the Sandstorm. And then a simple Drill Peck finishes off Komodo. He then sends out a Luxray, and it has Intimidate, which lowers my Corviknight's attack. Knowing that I need to get rid of the Intimidate, I switch out for Double. Double tanks not one, but 2 Wild Charges. And I was hoping to spam Cotton Guard and just stall for a bit, but the Luxray is faster than me and then KOs me the third turn. But because of the recoil damage from Wild Charge, as well as the tick damage from the Sandstorm, Luxray was missing a good chunk of his HP. And with Corviknight now being my last Pokemon, I send him out hoping that he can finish off the Master of the Dojo. I thought now was a better time than ever to Dynamax. And I went for a Max Airstream, which is a stab move as well as it buffing my speed. And it does a pretty considerable amount of damage. The Luxray then hits me with a Wild Charge, which does, again, pretty considerable amount. The Luxray keeps getting hit with the recoil, lowering its HP more and more. I go for another Max Airstream to finish it off, as well as get another speed buff. He then sends out his final Pokemon, Urshifu. So this is it. It's down to the final 1v1. He Gigantamaxes Urshifu, which, you know, is big and scary and alright, but with a Max Airstream being super effective and stab, it did a pretty good amount of damage. Suddenly it wasn't so scary anymore. But what was scary is he hits me with the G-Max One Blow, which very nearly KOs Corviknight. So I thought the best thing I could do in this situation was just IM stall and wait out his Dynamax moves and then pray to God that he doesn't land a crit. Urshifu undynamaxes and then hits me with a close combat, lowering its defense. And with my speed buff from the Max Airstream, I hit it with a super effective Brave Bird, which makes me the victor of this battle. Everyone at the dojo congratulates me, except for Clara of course, and that finishes off my time at the Isle of Armor. And next I was planning to set off for the second part of this DLC, the Crown Tundra. And just like before, I had to make my way to Wedgehurst Station, but this time I actually knew where I was going. The train takes me all the way to the most southern part of Galar, which is where the Crown Tundra is located. Upon arrival to the Crown Tundra, I meet the scientist, which gives me a brand spanking new Pokédex. I head outside and bestow my eyes upon the beautiful snowy sights of the Crown Tundra, but my sightseeing seems to get disturbed by this father and daughter that seem to be having an argument. The girl calls me over to save her from her father, because I'm clearly just the most heroic man in Galar. He challenges me to a battle and I beat him pretty easily. So while we were having our battle, the daughter pulled a Sue Storm and disappeared. While looking for his daughter, we go into this place called the Max Lair, where Peony over here gets into an argument with the scientist. And basically the rule is you're not allowed to go in on your own. So I accompany the man and we take on some Dynamax Pokemon. We get to the end and find a Suicune that absolutely rolls our team. I don't find a shiny, but I do find Peony's daughter, who basically asks me to go on the adventure with him that was meant for her. I exit the Max Lair to tell him that his daughter won't be joining us on this adventure, and I find him dead. The end. Nah, not really, he was just being overdramatic. I make my way over to this little town called Freezington, where the mayor shows me the statue of a horse, and Peony waves me over from a little cabin. He explains that this will be our base camp while we're on this adventure, and he gives me an expedition uniform to match his own. But I change back into my normal clothes because, hey, if I'm going to meet a bunch of legendaries, then I want to look fly. I start off my investigation by checking out Peony's pillow, which turns out to be the crown that's missing from the horse statue that the mayor told me about. I plonk the crown back on the statue, and then suddenly this mysterious figure appears behind it like something out of a horror movie. I approach this creepy looking alien and take it on in a battle. After the battle, it does an awful job at trying to convince me that it's not a horror film protagonist and possesses Peony in order to talk through him. He tells me that his name is Calyrex, and he's known as the King of Bountiful Harvests, and he's basically the thing that helps Freezington grow their crops. But it turns out that the people of the village have forgot about him, and his power works through the power of belief or something. I don't really know. So I have to go around the village basically asking everyone, do you know this man? And unfortunately for our onion-headed friend, they do not. Or at least they just don't believe in him anymore. I go out looking for the mayor, who is by a field looking for somewhere to grow crops. You learn that Calyrex used to have a horse, and we're all trying to work out what this horse loved to eat so that we can summon it. Because once the two are together again, then Calyrex's power should come back. I read a book for the first time in my life and then go and meet Calyrex again. And I tell him that I found out his horse loves carrots, which means that we need to grow a carrot. But the only place you can get carrot seeds is this one guy in the middle of the village, and he charges you 8 Dynite ores for them. I only have 4, which means we've got to go on another Dynamax adventure. So I went and fought a bunch of Pokemon, including a legendary. None of them happened to have a colour deformation. I got my Dynite ores and I went and bought some carrot seeds. I literally went and fought some giant Pokemon so I can get some seeds. What is this? I went and bought the carrot seeds, and then Calyrex tells me that there's 2 different places that I can plant them. You can either plant them in a very snowy field, or you can plant them in a graveyard. And this will determine what type Calyrex is. And I decided to go with the graveyard. Calyrex uses his powers to make the carrot grow. We see a mysterious horse show up outside the cemetery, and Calyrex seems to believe that that is his horse. But the horse makes its way to Freezington and starts harassing the locals. I save the locals by one-shotting it. After it runs off, I pick up some of its hair from the ground, because, you know, that's totally normal. And it turns out that this hair is one of the components that is needed to make the Reins of Unity, which is an item that helps Calyrex have control over his horse. Calyrex gives me a Radiant Petal, which is the other component that you need to make the reins. While looking around the village for someone who could craft the reins, I went into this house and just got given a Cosmog by this lady. Alright, sick. I go to the mayor's house and he attempts to make the Reins of Unity, but he can't seem to be able to do it. But luckily for us, Big Boy Peony shows up and he manages to do it first try. Maybe he's not so useless after all. Now that we have the Reins of Unity, Calyrex explains that we have to make our way to the shrine at the top of the Crown Tundra, because he knows that that's where the horse is going to go. So I make my way to the top and meet Calyrex at the shrine. I put the carrots into this basket, which should lure the horse in, and then all we have to do is wait for it to show up. Calyrex then jumps on the horse like he's doing Nedge's Big Stranger Rodeo. Cool, that's a blast from the past. Drop a like if you know where that's from. And now that he is at one with his horse, he challenges me to catch him, and I never shy away from a challenge. But god, I wish that I did, because this took so long. But after what felt like hours, but I think it actually was hours, I eventually caught it, and it joined me on my journey to find the rest of the legendaries. The next legendaries that I was on a quest to find was the Regis, and each of them are locked behind these temples that you have to solve a certain riddle in order to open. On the door for the Registeel temple, it read, "Let ring the piercing note that will wake the giant of steel." I couldn't work out what that meant, so I'll come back to that later. The Regis temple involved me catching a Cryogonal, because on the door for the Regis temple, it read, "Walk together with a living crystal of snow," which basically just means to have a Cryogonal at the front of your party so that it's out of its Pokeball. That one was easy enough, and when I did that, the temple opened. Once I get inside, I discover that there's these switches on the floor, and once you turn them all on, you can battle the Reggie. So I encountered the Regice, and many Pokeballs later, I eventually caught it. Next I headed to the Regirock Temple, where the riddle on the door read, "Let the first Pokemon hold a never-changing stone." Which seems pretty obvious to me. Give the first Pokemon in your party a Everstone. So I rummaged through my bag, found an Everstone, and gave it to the first Pokemon in my party. And just like that, the door opened. So I walked inside, found the switches on the floor, yada yada yada, you know the drill, and then I encountered Regirock. After many balls thrown and a single timer ball, I eventually caught Regirock, but I was still really stuck on this Registeel one. Now I've got a bone to pick with whoever at Game Freak decided this riddle, because the other two, very clear, quite easy to get. But this one, I was stumped for hours. I tried so many different things and just none of them were working. The other two involved either having a specific Pokemon or having a specific item. So by following the pattern, I assumed that this one would as well. Oh no, I was very wrong. I looked around the village to see if there was any sort of item I was missing that might have helped. I desperately searched through my bag for any sort of item that might resemble something that makes a noise. So basically anything with bell in its name, such as the shell bell or the soothe bell. Hell, I even tried shaking this tree outside to see if that would cause enough ruckus to wake up Registeel. I went back to Peony to see if he had any advice, but he basically just said the same thing that was on the door. I looked around the village looking for clues, like a mystery ink or something. I asked this Beldam and I even asked this little girl, and they didn't seem to know. I tried catching a Bronzong, because Bronzong's design is literally based on a bell. I looked through my boxes to see if I had any Pokemon that knew moves that made noise, such as Sing, Screech or Metal Sound. I even tried talking to my Pokemon outside the door to see if that would trigger it, but no, nothing. I tried using a Loudred, because loud, you know, it's in the name, noise. But nope, still nothing. I even tried setting up a picnic and waving this little toy because it has a bell on it. I tried combining some of them, like taking an item with bell in the name and giving it to Bronzong, which is a bell. Another idea I had was using Toxtricity, because its whole thing is playing an electric guitar, and I thought, piercing note, you know, maybe that's to do with it. Tried checking the clues again in my key items just to see if there was anything I was missing. I really didn't want to resort to having to Google the answer because I take pride in working these sort of things out myself, and I'm very into puzzles. But after hours of trying so many different things, I caved in, and I just had to Google it. So after it finally opened, I turned on the switches, encountered Registeel, caught it, you know, we'll move on. Now you might think that that's all the Reggies, but no. In Pokemon Sword and Shield, they added 2 new Reggies, Regieleki and Regidrago. I made my way to the temple where they're kept, and the riddle required me to have all 3 of the other Reggies in my party, but I was ahead of the game and already did that, because I had a feeling that's probably what the riddle would be. And I was right. This time, I turned on all the switches and nothing happened. Based on the fact that it was called Split Decision Ruins, I knew that I was having to choose one or the other. So I tried lighting the switches up in various different patterns, usually referring to all on the left or all on the right or some sort of equal balance, but I couldn't work it out. I'd already wasted too much time on a stupid Reggie quest, so I just decided to Google it again. And in my defense, I did have the right idea. I did know that it was a specific set of switches you had to turn on. I just couldn't be bothered to work out which ones they were. So I turned on all the switches that would give me the Regidrago encounter. Encountered it, threw many balls at it, and eventually caught it. I reported back to Peony about catching all of these Reggies, and officially marked that quest as done. And with the Reggies out the way, there was only one more set of legendaries we had to get. And that was the Galarian forms of the Kanto birds. I made my way down to this giant tree that's at the bottom of the Crown Tundra to find the 3 birds battling it out, I guess, you know, having some sort of brawl. I don't really know why, but you know, I was just kind of there to watch. After their little battle, they all decide to split up and go to different parts of the Galar region, where it is then my job to track them all down and catch them. The first one I went for was Articuno, who actually stays in the Crown Tundra part of the map. So I go down into the hills and find it chilling just on this cliff edge. It does some weird double team guess which one is the real one kind of thing, and I take a guess at which one it is. I'm not sure if I end up getting it right or not, but it ends up disappearing and then just kind of spawning on me. So I mean, I'll take it. Same goes for any of the other legendaries. Weaken it, throw a bunch of balls, and wait until it eventually catches. The second bird I went after was Moltres, which appears in the Isle of Armor. Once you show up at the Isle of Armor, you don't have to track it down as such, you just have to follow it as it runs. And once it eventually stops, you can battle it. And once again, encounter it, weaken it, throw a bunch of balls, catch it, register it to the dex, move on. And now there was but one more bird I had to find, and that was Zapdos. Now Zapdos flees to the wild area, and once you get to the wild area and approach it, it runs away. And you have to chase it down through the wild area until it stops. But eventually it stops, and you get to encounter it and have your battle. And you know what's coming next? hurl a bunch of balls at it and wait until it catches. So with Zapdos then being caught, that concludes every legendary that you can find on this quest. I report back to Peony and tell him my findings of all these legendaries that I've caught. He seems pretty happy with it and continues to keep letting me use the lodge. And with that being done, that concludes my time at the Crown Tundra, and my first time playing through these DLCs. I hope you enjoyed this little journey of me taking on the DLCs, and if you did enjoy, be sure to press those like and subscribe buttons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.